one last time and grace this amazing, legendary stage in Crolines. So bring up the next one. Thank you. Dave Juskow, everybody. I love you. I'm watching from an undisclosed location.
Come on, Jeff. Say it. Drinks on the house. You're right. Ladies and gentlemen, let's bring up the first comic. This guy is the greatest guy. He's a legend in New York City. Jeff Gurian, everybody.
Happen to be a great crowd, so give yourselves a hand for coming out tonight. Come on! Because I don't know if anybody mentioned this yet, but you're the most important people here. We tried this once without an audience. It fucking sucked. It's the worst. And how great is it to be together in person and not on Zoom, right? Yes, that deserves applause. Absolutely. Fucking Zoom. A lot of comics tried doing comedy on Zoom. Let me tell you what that was like. Doing comedy on Zoom is like standing on a highway and yelling out jokes to passing cars. It's like, hey, have you heard this one? Zoom. I think that's where they got the name Zoom from. And so you can probably tell just by looking at me, I fit in wherever I go. It's amazing. I just kind of blend into every crowd. Actually, do you guys know who Josh Groban is? You know, the famous singer, right? He's internationally known. So I have this friend, and he looks a lot like Josh Groban. And he hates it, because wherever he goes, people stop him and tell him that he looks like Josh Groban. Because for some reason, people think they have the right to stop you and tell you who they think you look like. So he calls me the other night complaining that wherever he goes, people tell him he looks like Josh Groban. I mean, what the fuck are you complaining about? At least you get somebody normal. I get Phil Spector fucked Elton John. Which could actually happen, by the way. So it's so funny because people think it's funny if you know what you look like. And each and every one of you swears you know what you look like. But the truth is, you know what you look like to you. If you want to know what you look like, ask somebody else to describe you. But if you really want to know what you look like, ask a little kid to describe you. Yeah, trust me, you'll want to fucking kill yourself. Yeah, I asked this little kid to describe me. He looked at me for a minute. He's like, if Phil Spector fucked Elton John. Yeah, I was shocked. I was absolutely shocked. I'm like, you're a little kid. I didn't even know Phil Spector and Elton John. He's like, Google, bitch. Then he took it one step further. He said, you look like you wandered away from a rock concert in 1968. During a particularly intense acid trip. I was like, that's amazing, kid. You're only 1 year off. Yeah, it was 1969. It was during the Woodstock Festival. How could you possibly have known that? And he didn't answer me. And that's when I realized that I just made him up for the purpose of that joke. You know, it's true. We have no idea what we look. Absolutely not a fucking clue what we look like. And I'm as guilty as anyone else. Have any of you had the pleasure of being on the Manhattan subways when they're really crowded? Yeah, you know how horrible that is, right? So I get on the subway last week. The proverbial sardine can, packed, not a seat to be had. This beautiful young girl taps me on the arm. I think she wants to meet me. She fucking offered me her seat. And I took it too. Well, I had a long trip and I'm not too proud. But men in general have no idea what they look like. Not a fucking clue. And I'll prove it to you. It's the reason why all men pack condoms with them when they go on vacation. Every man, no matter what he looks like, he can look like fucking Shrek. But he packs condoms when he goes on vacation because every man is convinced that he's going to have sex while he's away. Yeah, most of the time they come home with more condoms than they left with because they found a sale on condoms while they're away. It's very confusing. So many things confuse me. I don't know about you guys, but don't you hate it when you wake up in the morning and you're really in the mood to vote and there's no election? like that. How do you take away that urge to cast a ballot? You know, that night you're supposed to turn your clocks ahead an hour at 2 a.m. You weren't supposed to meet somebody at 2 a.m. What time do you show up? At 1:59, you're still a minute early. 1 minute later, you're an hour late. You can't do it. So many things confuse. You ever notice, you never see an infant that looks familiar to you. You never hear anybody say, you see that infant over there? I can swear I know him from somewhere. Never hear that. So many things confuse me. You know what confuses me? The headbutt. The headbutt totally confuses me. How come only the guy receiving the headbutt gets hurt? And not the guy using his head like a fucking hammer. What is this, some secret agreement in the headbutt community? That only one guy gets hurt at a time? Giving someone a headbutt makes no sense. It's like shooting yourself, hoping to get the guy behind you. Unbelievable. So pants are important. I have no material on that, I just thought I'd let you know. No, I do have material on that. Ripped jeans. I gotta talk about ripped jeans for a minute. Ripped jeans. Why are jeans the only article of clothing you can wear in such bad shape and it's considered perfectly acceptable? There is no other article of clothing that you could show up in such horrible condition and get away with it. You can't show up in a ripped shirt, a torn dress, a suit with holes in the knees. But jeans could be ripped to shreds and people love them. I saw a girl last week just wearing pockets. That's all, just pockets, that's all that was left. Both legs were completely gone, just pockets. $1,000. Poor people could never wear ripped jeans, they can't afford them. Soon it'll be like that old-time children's story, The Emperor's New Clothes. You'll be completely naked and people will be like, hey, great jeans. Let me leave you on this. I love seeing such a diverse crowd, and people here come from all over the place. And I don't care where you're from, but we share similar traits in common. As people, we tend to exaggerate. Now think about it. How many times have you gotten that call from a friend who tells you he was almost killed, but he wasn't even hurt? Almost killed. He has the balls to say he was almost killed, doesn't have a scratch on him. And they all have some weird story, but it all ends the same way. And one more inch, and I would have been killed. I'm like, what the fuck are you exaggerating for? If you're going to tell people you're almost killed, at least have the decency to be severely injured. Or else it diminishes the severity of the story, right? It's like saying, I almost had sex with this chick last night. Really? How far'd you get? Well, I called her and she wasn't home. But if she had been home, I would have totally nailed her. Which is a very romantic expression, used mostly around Valentine's Day. I would have nailed her. And it had to be created by a guy, and I'll tell you how I know this. It had to be created by a guy, because only a guy would be fucked up enough to compare the act of having sex with a woman to hammering a nail into a piece of wood. You'll never hear two women use that expression. You'll never hear one woman say to another, how was your date last night? Did he nail you? You'll never hear that. And if you do hear that, change who you're hanging out with, because it's a bad crowd. Not like you guys, who've been a great crowd. I'm Jeffrey Gurian.
Jeff Gurian, everybody. Jeff Gurian. Yes. He's an awesome dude, and he's got amazing hair. I'm very jealous of him. Right? Yeah, I heard. Yeah. Well, yes, the show is